What do you think of when you hear The Breakfast Club? For most, our minds jump straight to the iconic 1985 film, a quintessential tale of the adolescent experience told through the lens of a group of American high school students spending their weekend in a school detention. A story of the trials and tribulations that lie ahead of students from all walks of life, with the common experience of feelings of isolation. A story that concludes with the sharing of deep and repressed emotions from each student, and the subsequent unlikely group of friends with a bond forged through the fires of sharing their own inner doubts and fears. By now you're probably contemplating why I've begun a video entitled Behaviour Management Strategies, with a loose anecdote about a film which, at the time of writing, dates itself by almost 4 decades. Well, as a pre-service teacher and ex-student, I find this movie incredibly instructive on the adolescent experience and a potential response to this put forward by the educational system, although obviously this is a fictional representation of such things. In the case of The Breakfast Club, the school and the principal respond to the rebellion of the students with a rigid show of force, a weekend detention, taking the much-needed break from school away from misbehaving students. This overly simplified and unempathetic view of student experiences and actions is an educational philosophy that has been challenged for many years as a component of a push to see student behaviour as symptomatic of a student's mental state, more than just the nature of the student. This is why when I hear The Breakfast Club, I contemplate on a cautionary tale, a call for the consideration of more diverse and compassionate strategies that value students rather than casting them aside. Hi, my name is Jackson Morris, and this is a teaching resource based upon my studies within the final 2 modules of Engaging Learners, Classroom Management and Neuroscience. In this video, I will provide a brief overview of several behaviour management strategies designed to provide a more nuanced perspective on student management. The first strategy I want to review is the pragmatic method of behaviour management, as defined by Rudolf Dreikurs. This model designates 4 mistaken goals of misbehaviour that outline social pressures that can be attributed to negative and disruptive student behaviour. These goals being attention seeking, seeking power, feelings of inadequacy, or seeking revenge. To educators, these goals may seem obvious and intuitive, but I find the practical applications of this knowledge in the classroom to be quite intriguing. For example, instead of utilising a more direct and combative behaviour management technique to improve the behaviour of a power or attention-seeking student, a teacher may instead choose to incorporate their perspectives into a lesson. This allows for the student's social desires to be satiated, whilst also providing the teacher with a positive avenue to improve the classroom environment. Similarly, the strategies suggested for students with revenge-seeking or feelings of inadequacy are also centered around the teacher working constructively with the student to achieve better outcomes for the student and the class. These strategies being giving confidence-building activities for students who feel inadequate and providing positive avenues for students who are seeking revenge to feel more socially secure. Another behaviour management strategy that defines the classroom teacher as a consultant to students is the love and logic model. This model is intriguing as it invests heavily into the student and provides an environment to them that is conducive for their natural development and allows for them to see clearly the consequences for their actions. In the classroom, this strategy manifests itself as the teacher acting as a consultant for students and assisting them in making their own positive decisions. Rather than direct confrontation, anticipatory consequences are preferred, such as talking with the student at the end of class. Although this method has some clear flaws, such as clear processes not being outlined for some practical situations, I take great interest in studying the rhetoric behind such a philosophy. I find the role of the teacher within this strategy very interesting, as it is more fluid than in other more direct models. And more generally, I am a firm believer in the prioritisation of student well-being and choice. It is, however, worth noting that due to its relative lack of practical substance, for the model to work effectively in the classroom, the teacher must consider what procedures they will implement for the practical implementation of this philosophy. A final behaviour management strategy that I find very intriguing and founded in classroom practice is the reality therapy model developed by Dr. William Glasser. This model is centered around the recognition of 5 key needs that students need satisfied, these being survival, love and belonging, freedom, fun, and power. In the classroom, the knowledge of these 5 needs can then empower the teacher to identify which need a misbehaving student is trying to address. The student and the teacher can then work constructively to find more positive and less disruptive avenues for the student to have their needs met. This model is particularly useful in practice in the classroom, as it provides teachers with a clear strategy for managing students who refuse to follow through on the collaboration between them and the teacher. This being the clear outlining of the student's choice, the punishment then being followed up on if necessary, and ending with the teacher not taking excuses for the behaviour from the student. As can be seen in all 3 strategies outlined, behaviour management must be seen as a pedagogical approach that is far broader than the more typical, rigid and unempathetic methods used traditionally. I think that there is a lot to be gained in the classroom through the adoption of the philosophy of empathy and student consideration present at the core of all 3 models. Certainly more than there is to be gained by using the rhetoric behind keeping students in detention and disregarding their concerns and fears.